Hi everyone! Welcome to my YouTube channel. By the way, shout out muna kay Skywalker. And thank you so much to all my subscribers, viewers, and likers. At sa mga magsusubscribe, mag-view, and magla-like, maraming salamat na po sa inyo. Sa mga comment ninyo upang ma-improve, namely Sir Rich Largo, Ian Quintanilla, Raymond Toledo, Derek Paz, Eliseo Carrizo, Sir Julius, and Sir Homer, maraming salamat po sa lahat na learners at sa mga gusto pang matuto at ma-improve ang math skills nila. Search nyo lang sa YouTube, Now Math Learning. At sigurado akong math is easy as 1, 2, 3. At this point, let's proceed to our topic, factoring. Factoring is a process of obtaining factors. Sometimes, pwede natin itong tawagin na breaking up process. Why breaking up process? Because we break up an expressions into its component called factors. Itong mga factors, yun ang mga minomultiply. Kung sa elementary, we call it multiplicand and multipliers. But then, itong multiplicand and multiplier are called factors. Hindi na natin ma-determine ang multiplicand and multiplier kung more than 2 na po yung factors. Now, take note that factoring is very important in simplifying algebraic expressions, equations, and inequalities in general math or in other mathematics. So let us proceed now to the definition of factoring. Factoring is the process of obtaining the factors of a given number or of a given polynomial expression. Examples: we are factoring when we say the following. The factors of 20 are 4 and 5, or 10 and 2, or 20 and 1. Another example, the factors of 3x plus 3 are 3 and x plus 1, or x plus 1 and 3. So that's already factoring of polynomial expressions or of the given numbers. Prime factorization is the special kind of factoring in which all the factors given are prime numbers or prime expressions. Examples: the prime factorization of 20 is 2 times 2 times 5, or can be expressed as 2 squared times 5. You use 2 only once as a base and 2 as an exponent as the number of 2 as factor. Another, the prime factorization of 3x plus 3 is 3 and x plus 1. So 3 and x plus 1 and 2 squared times 5 are prime factorizations of a number 20 and an expressions 3x plus 3. Why? Because the only factors are 1 and the number itself. For instance, 3 and 1, x plus 1 and 1. To be able to give the factors of a number or polynomial, we must learn the process of multiplication and be able to recognize certain characteristics of the polynomial expressions like the special products. Enumerated here are the first 4 special products. We have x times the quantity of a plus b equals ax plus bx. The product of a minus b and a plus b is simply equal to a squared minus b squared. The square of a plus or minus b is simply equal to a squared plus or minus 2ab plus b squared. The product of x plus a and x plus b is equal to x squared plus the quantity of a plus b multiply x plus ab. Let's proceed to the types of factoring. The first type of factoring is factoring by GCF. GCF is greatest common factor. The form is ax plus bx is equal to x times the quantity of a plus b. Why? Because the GCF and ax plus bx, there are only two terms, ax the first term, bx the second term. The common here is x. Yan ang tinatawag na GCF. You will write the GCF x as the first factor, and you need to divide all the terms by the GCF to get the second factor. Examples. If you factor the algebraic expression or polynomial 10x plus 5y minus 20, this is a trinomial because there are three terms. This is the trinomial or the terms 10x, 5y, and negative 20, common yung 5. Therefore, the GCF is 5. How to factor this polynomial expression by GCF? First, you will write first 5 as the first factor. Second, you make now a parenthesis for the second factor. How to get for the second factor? You need to divide the first term by the GCF. 10x divide 5 is 2x. 5y divide 5 is y. Negative 20 divide 5 is negative 4. Therefore, 2x plus y minus 4 is another factor of 10x plus 5y minus 20. Therefore, the factor of 10x plus 5y minus 20, we have 5 and 2x plus y minus 4. Another example. Suppose you are going to factor 2m times the quantity of x plus 2 plus 4p times the quantity of x plus 2 squared. Now, before you factor this, dapat alam nyo kung ilang terms meron tayo sa given expressions. There are only two. The first term, yung 2m times the quantity of x plus 2, and the second term, 4p times the quantity of x plus 2 squared. Kung hindi nyo pa alam kung paano magbilang ng terms, meron akong video sa YouTube, sa channel ko. Please watch it. And you know how to count the number of terms of a polynomial. Very important po yan sa pag-factor ng algebraic expression, equation, or inequalities. So in these two terms, the common for the coefficient first, 2 and 4, common yung 2. Yung m and p, walang common. Yung x plus 2 and x plus 2 squared, may common na x plus 2 na isa ang exponent. That's the GCF. The GCF is 2 times the quantity of x plus 2. First step nyo is isusulat na itong GCF as one factor. Okay. Pag nasulat na yung 2 times the quantity of x plus 2 as one factor, you will make now a parenthesis. Bakit I use bracket? Kasi ang given may parenthesis. May matitirang parenthesis sa loob, so I use another symbol para hindi nakakalito. Now, to get for the other factor, ang gagawin natin ay i-divide itong first term sa GCF. 2 divide 2 is 1. M divide walang m, so kukopyahin ang m. X plus 2 divide x plus 2, so wala. So for the first term, ang natira ay m. For the second term, 4p divide 2 is 2p. X plus 2 squared divide x plus 2 to the first is x plus 2 to the first. Kasi dalawa ito dito, si isa ang natira. Ito na po ang factored form of the two terms 2m times the quantity of x plus 2 plus 4p times the square of x plus 2. Another type of factoring is factoring by difference of 2 squared. D2S means difference of 2 squares. We have the form a squared minus b squared equals a minus b times a plus b. Ano yung i-consider dito sa D2S? Take note that there are only two terms. First term a squared, second term b squared, and difference, minus yung sign between the two terms. At yung first term ay perfect square, second term ay perfect square. So ang gagawin nyo, you just apply square root. Example, factor 16x squared minus 9y squared. First step, take note that there are two terms and the two terms are perfect square and the sign between the term is negative. Therefore, you can apply factoring by D to S. Anong gagawin? Gagawa ka na ng dalawang factors by using the parentheses. And then first, get the square root of the first term, which is 16x squared. Square root is 4x. Square root of the second term, 9y squared, is 3y. So, isusulat mo na 4x, then 3y, 4x, then 3y, plus yung isa, minus yung isa. Or, better, lagyan mo na ng minus sign for the first factor at plus sign for the second factor. Get the square root of the first term, 4x, 4x. Kinokopya lang. Square root of 9y squared is 3y, 3y. And this is already in factored form of the given expression 16x squared minus 9y squared. Another example, suppose you are going to factor 3x to the 7th power minus 243x. Now, there are two terms, but then the first term is not a perfect number, nor the second term is also not a perfect number. Now, in factoring, ang una ninyong tatandaan ay laging uunahin ang GCF. Baka pwede siya i-factor by GCF. Now, in this case, may GCF siya na 3x. Common yung 3 sa dalawang terms at common yung x sa dalawang terms. So, we factor it first by GCF. So, you will write first 3x as factor and then gawa ka na ng parenthesis. Divide the first term by the GCF. 3x to the 7 divide 3x is x to the 6. Negative 243x divide 3x is negative 81. 243 divide 3 is 81. X divide x is 1. So, 81 na lang, kinopya lang yung sign. But then, x to the 6 minus 81 is still factorable by difference of 2 square. Why? Because there are only two terms, minus yung nasa gitna. First term is a perfect square, and the last term or the second term is also a perfect square. So therefore, factorable by difference of 2 square. How to factor it? Kukopyahin na muna yung 3x at gagawa ka ng dalawang factors. Yung isa, applying this form, a minus b, a plus b. So next, lagyan mo na ng minus yung isa plus. Then how to get? Get the square root of x to the 6. The square root is x cubed. And 81 is 9. That's the complete factored form of the expression 3x to the 7th power minus 243x. So there are 4 factors. Let's proceed. Let's proceed to the third type of factoring. Factoring by PST plus. PST means perfect square trinomials. We have the form a squared plus 2ab plus b squared equals the square of A plus B. Ano yung tatandaan nyo dito? The first and the last terms are perfect squares, A squared and B squared. The middle term is positive. And the middle term is positive. Example, factor x squared plus 10xy plus 25y squared. First, the first and last term na i-consider nyo ay perfect square. Is x squared a perfect number? Yes. Is 25y squared a perfect number? Yes. Is the middle term positive? Yes. Is the middle term twice the product of the square root of the first and the last term? What do you mean by that? Get the square root of the first term is x. Square root of the last term is 5y. I-multiply yun. 5y times x is 5xy. Then twice times 2. That's 10xy. Is that the middle term? Yes. Therefore, we can factor it by PST plus. How to make the factor or how to write the factor? First step, gawa ka na muna ng parenthesis. Lagyan mo na ng square sa taas. Lagyan mo na ng positive in between if the last term is positive and the middle term is positive. Get the square root of the first term, which is x, and square root of the last term, which is 5y. Then, yan na po ang factored form ng given expression, x squared plus 10xy plus 25y squared. Another. Suppose we have 2x cubed plus 16x squared y plus 32xy squared. Ang first step lagi, kahit anong klaseng factoring, ang una ninyong pakatandaan ay kung pwede siyang i-factor by GCF. You factor it first by GCF. In these three terms, the GCF is 2x. We divide all the terms by 2x to get the other factor. So 2x is one of the factor and the other is, lagyan mo na ng parenthesis, divide 2x cubed, divide 2x is x squared. 16x squared y divide 2x is 8xy. 32xy squared divide 2x is 16y squared. So ito na yung factored form nito. But then, tingnan nyo muna kung itong trinomial is still factorable. There are three terms. So baka siya PST positive. Plus yung gitna, plus yung last. First term, perfect square. Last term, perfect square. So still factorable by PST positive. Anong gagawin? Kukopyahin na muna itong 2x. Gawa ka na ng parenthesis. Lagyan na ng square sa labas. Lagyan na ng plus sign in between. Get the square root of x squared, which is x. Get the square root of 16y squared, which is 4y. Check. The product of 4y and x times 2. Is that the middle term? Yes. Therefore, this is the complete factored form of the trinomial expression 2x cubed plus 16x squared y plus 32xy squared. Another type of factoring is factoring by PST negative. Still, PST means perfect square trinomial. Here, we have the form a squared minus 2ab plus b squared equals the square of a minus b. Pareho lang ito sa pangatlong type of factoring. Ang pagkakaiba lang ay yung nasa gitna. Take note that the first and the last are perfect squares and the middle term is negative. But then the last term is still positive. So, for instance, we have here the same example, yung gitna lang ang pinalitan ko. This is negative. So, therefore, your first step is make, parenthesis, lagyan ng square sa labas, lagyan na po ng minus in between. If the middle term is negative, negative ang ilalagay. Get the square root of x squared and get the square root of 25y squared, which is 5y, times 2. Is that the middle term? If your answer is yes, therefore, that's the complete factor of the expression. Square of x minus 5y. Another, we have 2x cubed minus 16x squared y plus 32xy squared. How to write this in factored form? May GCF siyang 2x. So we factor it first by GCF. So kukunin yung 2x, then gawa ka ng parenthesis, and then get the factor here by dividing 2x cubed by 2x, 16x squared y by 2x, 32xy squared by 2x, and we have the answer x squared minus 8xy plus 16y squared. But then itong nasa loob ng parenthesis is still factorable by PST negative. So therefore, kukopyahin na yung nasa labas na 2x and we factor it na nasa loob. PST minus kasi first and last are perfect square. The middle term is negative kaya dapat lagyan mo na ng negative at may square na sa labas. Get the square root of the last and square root of the first. So we have 4xy times 2. The answer is the middle term, therefore factorable by PST negative. Ito na yung complete factored form of 2x cubed minus 16x squared y plus 32xy squared. So the complete factored form ay 2x times the square of x minus 4y. Another type of factoring is factoring by QT-1. QT means quadratic trinomials. We have the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is equal to 1 and a is not equal to 1. Take note that a is the coefficient of x squared or any first term na perfect number. As long as the coefficient, as long as a is equal to 1. The middle term or b is the coefficient of x and c is the constant term. Example. Take note here, we have two to be considered. First, when the last term is positive and when the last term is negative. Let's proceed first when the last term is positive. Factor x squared minus 9x plus 8. Now, take note that a or the coefficient of x squared is only 1 and the middle term is negative. What will you do? Gawa ka ng dalawang parentheses. If the last term is positive, whatever the sign of the middle term, yun ang sign ng factors. So, lagyan mo na pareho ng negative. Kasi positive ang last term, negative yung middle term, so therefore parehong negative ang factors. Yung first term na x squared, get the square root, that's xx. Then ano ang gagawin sa 8? Okay, kunin mo yung factor ng 8 or dalawang number na pag minultiply ay 8, pero pag inad ay 9. So the only factors of 8, we have 8 times 1 na pag inad ay 9. 8 and 1. Hindi pwede ang 4 and 2 because 4 plus 2 is 6. But then 4 times 2 is 8. Ang nasa gitna ina-add because we have the same sign ng factors. The same negative or the same positive. Pag ang middle term negative, parehong negative ang factors. Pag ang middle term ay positive, parehong positive ang factors. Tingnan natin sa pangalawang example. If you notice, there are 3 terms. Lahat siya positive and may GCF. We factor it first by GCF, which is 3x. So we have 3x times the quantity. We divide this trinomial by 3x. The answer is x squared plus 6x plus 8. But then, x squared plus 6x plus 8 can be factored by QT-1. Why QT? Because the last term is not a perfect number. So, ang gagawin, still factorable by QT-1. Ang gagawin, kukopyahin na yung 3x, gagawa na ng dalawang parenthesis. Since positive ang gitna, meaning parehong positive, get now the square root of x squared, which is x and x. At ano ang gagawin sa 8? Think of a factor na pag minultiply yung dalawang number ay 8, pero pag inad yung dalawang factor ay 6. For instance, 8 times 1. Pag minultiply, 8. 8 plus 1, 9. Hindi pwede. 4 times 2, 8. 4 plus 2, 6. Yun ang kukunin mong factors, 2 and 8. So yun, 2 and 4. Hindi po 2 and 8, 16 na yon. Dapat 2 and 4. That when you multiply, the answer is 8. But when you add, the answer is 6. At ito na yung complete factored form of the trinomial, given trinomial. Another case, when the last term is negative. For instance, factor x squared minus 8x minus 8. The last term is negative and the middle term is negative. Ano ang gagawin natin? Take note that the coefficient of x squared is still equals 1. But then the middle term is negative. So anong gagawin? Gagawa ka na ng dalawang parenthesis. Get now the square root of the first term. We have x and x. Then, alternate ang sign. Ang isa ay plus, ang isa minus. Tandaan ha? When the last term is negative, ang sign ng factors ay negative yung isa, positive yung isa. Paano mo malalaman saan ilalagay yung malaking factor? Sa negative ba or sa positive? Ganito lang po yon. Kung ano ang sign ng middle term, yun din ang sign ng malaking number. So the middle term is negative. Therefore, dito natin ilalagay yung malaking number na pag minultiply ay 8, then pag inadd ay 8. What do you mean by add? Adding unlike sign is subtracting the numbers. So, factor na pag minultiply ay negative 8, we have only negative 8 times 1 or negative 1 times 8. So, kunin natin yung negative 8 times 1. Kasi nga sabi ko, kung ano yung sign ng middle term, yun ang sign ng malaking number. So, therefore, 8, negative 8, and positive 1. So, ito na yung complete factor ng x squared minus 8x minus 8. Another example. Suppose the given is x cubed plus 2x squared minus 8x. How to factor it? By GCF first, which is x. We have x times the quantity. I-divide yung x cubed by x. We have x squared. Yung 2x squared by x, we have 2x. And negative 8x by x is negative 8. Still, factorable yung x squared plus 2x minus 8 by QT-1. So, anong gagawin? If gawa ka na ng dalawang parenthesis, kopyahin yung GCF as one of the factors. Since the last term is negative, meaning hindi pareho ang sign. Ang isa positive, ang isa negative. Get now the square root of the first term x squared. We have x and x. Now this time, the middle term is positive, meaning yung malaking number ay positive ang sign. When you multiply it is 8. When you subtract it is 2. So we have 2 times 4. 4 times 2, 8. 4 minus 2 is 2. Yung 4 ang positive. So dito ilalagay yung 4, dito ilalagay yung 2. And this is the complete factored form of the given expression. We have x times the quantity of x plus 4 times the quantity of x minus 2. Okay, ito muna yung part 1. Abangan ang premiere ng continuation of factoring part 2 tomorrow. Factoring from number 6 up to number 10. Take note, there are 10 types of factoring na very useful na magagamit ninyo sa pag-simplify ng expressions, equations, and inequality. Thank you so much. Huwag kalimutan mag-subscribe, mag-like, and mag-comment.